We can't be afraid to shine a spotlight on the practices of other nations that fall short of our universal obligations. This is true of small and large, weak and strong nations alike. As we said at the U.S.-China Human Rights Dialogue a couple of weeks ago in Beijing, and also in our annual Human Rights Report, we and many other observers of China are dismayed by the disappearances, detentions, and arrests that have taken place in recent months, as well as increased controls on Chinese citizens who are seeking to express their views peacefully or to practice their religion. The United States believes that human rights can't be relegated to any one channel. We continue to press China to respect universal human rights, respect for the rule of law, support of a robust civil society and public participation, protection of free speech and free press, respect for minority cultures and religious freedom, and the free flow of information. All of those are critical to it being a responsible global partner and to effectively addressing the global challenges that we're all facing together, whether it's terrorism or economic crises, climate change, natural disasters, or health pandemics. But we also have to understand priorities, and in many ways we must place the greatest attention and the highest priority on nations that are of most concerns, the ones that not only commit abuses, but that also lack any mechanism to allow them to self-correct. And these are the nations that systematically restrict freedom and they deny justice. Let me talk about 3 examples where the U.S. and Australia are working together. In the South Pacific, we have Fiji, once a functioning democracy, but now under the rule of a dictator who staged a military coup, abrogated the Constitution, and is ruling without the consent of the Fijian people. Since that 2006 coup, the military regime in Fiji has not taken any credible steps to restore democratic institutions. It continues to suppress the rights of free speech and press and assembly. And this entrenched authoritarian rule, a rule by leaders who are absolutely indifferent to criticism, deprives the people of Fiji of their rights. And it's a very dangerous model for the region and for the global community. Both the United States and Australia, along with our other international partners and regional organizations, we've imposed sanctions on Fiji, and we continue to encourage greater respect for human rights and a return to democratic government in Fiji. We've pledged repeatedly to help Fiji take those real steps towards restoring civilian government and democratic rule, and that means more than just their holding elections that are false or charade elections. It means an open and transparent process for selecting leaders that includes participation of all stakeholders, and that the work is independent, it's inclusive, it's time-bound, and it doesn't have a predetermined outcome. Now let's turn to Burma. Last November, Burma held deeply flawed elections and subsequently formed a government comprised almost entirely of members of the prior regime, by surprise. This was a missed opportunity to ensure an inclusive, credible process to put the country on a genuine path towards democracy. Now, although the regime released Aung San Suu Kyi last November from 7 years of unjustified house detention, it continues to detain 2,100 other political prisoners, many of whom would contribute greatly to ensuring a more prosperous, peaceful future for the country, such as the many activists who were imprisoned for organizing relief efforts for the victims of Cyclone Nargis. The United States, Australia, our partners in the international community, are continuing to impose robust and targeted economic, financial, travel sanctions on the senior Burmese leaders and their business cronies as a means to press for meaningful progress on human rights. This is both a way to convince them that repression isn't in their best interest by hitting their own pocketbooks, and it's a powerful signal that we won't do business as usual with governments that fail to protect the rights of their citizens. And we've offered some carrots along with these sticks. I mean, beginning about a year and a half ago, September 2009, the U.S. supplemented its sanctions with an effort to engage directly with the upper reaches of the Burmese regime. But unfortunately, to date, we've received no substantive response to those engagement efforts. Their human rights abuses are ongoing, the political environment remains highly repressive, and tensions continue to simmer in Burma's ethnic minority areas. But that doesn't mean that we're not having an effect. Just recently, on April 1st, a newly installed government assumed power in Burma. The United States is going to work with Australia and others to urge Burma's new president to break with the repressive policies of the past, to respect basic human rights, immediately and unconditionally release political prisoners, and begin this credible, inclusive dialogue among all the stakeholders in Burma towards some kind of national reconciliation and a better future for the Burmese people. Now, of course, no discussion of human rights in this region is complete without mentioning North Korea. The U.S. Department of State's 2010 Human Rights Report declared that the state of human rights in North Korea remains deplorable, which is not one of those words that you normally get from diplomats, except in alleged cables. State security forces reportedly commit severe human rights abuses, and political prisoners are subject to brutality and to torture. Elections aren't free, they're not fair, judiciary is not independent, citizens aren't free to speak, assemble, associate, there's no free press. The U.S. and our partners here in Australia remain very deeply concerned about human rights in the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. And we've made clear that improving human rights conditions is central to any prospect of any improved relation with North Korea. As President Obama made clear, there's a path open to the DPRK to achieve security and the international respect that they seek. And they've got two paths that they can choose. They can travel along that the path that's available to them by meeting their commitments and their international obligations and respecting the rule of law and the rights of their people. But until they do it, the United States and Australia and other nations are going to continue to apply sanctions and condemnation. The U.S. has implemented a whole range of sanctions to North Korea, and we've not only implemented the UN Security Council resolutions, but we've adopted sanctions that are specifically focused on DPRK's human rights abuses and involvement in illicit activities. And we hope North Korea will respond. We're ready to return to dialogue and seek a resolution of the of the Korean Peninsula with Northern Korea, but they need to take the next steps.